Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 63 of the Secondary Heroes podcast. This week, we continue our Secondary Artist Alley Getting to Know Artists with 100 Soft Truck Torrence. This is your host, Trevor, and joining me as usual is...
Hey, guys, this is Prague.
I now have a positive look at dumpster fires. This is DeLorean Wolfgang.
And our special guest is...
Yeah.
It's me, Truck Torrence. How are you?
Oh, we're doing good.
Yeah, we're doing quite well.
It's a nice sunny day here in California.
Hmm?
That's right, where we're all located at this point. Yeah, and my dumpster fire little intro was due to your creation of a cute little dumpster that's on fire.
Indeed.
I suppose before we get into that type of stuff, why don't we talk a little about you, like your background in art and getting into this world.
Sure. Fire away.
So I know that you started out like as in like design and stuff, right? Like that was kind of your intro. Did you actually go to school for any kind of art purposes, or was it strictly for design? Was that your purpose?
I did not go to school. I had a barely passable high school education.
Nice. Hey, that works. So what got you started then in that field? How'd you get your foot in the door?
I was I don't want to say troubled, but I was a aimless teenager.
Okay.
And I was having a lot of conversations about my potential with guidance counselors and teachers and principals and stuff like that. And they just didn't really know what to do with me. And I went to a fairly traditional public high school, and they just like didn't know what to do with me. They knew I was smart, but I was like in danger of flunking out of school.
Right.
And there was a guy who wasn't even a teacher really, but he would teach the ESL students how to use computers and how to he would give them computer skills basically.
Okay.
Nice.
And he was like this kook, man. He had crazy salt and pepper wild hair, and he wore a lot of corduroy, and he was always chain
sounds like
smoking.
my childhood. Okay.
Yeah, he was he would always leave the chain smoke. And anyway, he was older. Anyway, he would teach these ESL students how to use computers, and he was doing stuff that most traditional classes, I guess, weren't doing. And so the principal just kind of let him do this stuff. I don't know what their arrangement was, but the principal of my high school was like, look, why don't you hang out with this guy?
Okay.
And let him teach you stuff and we'll give you credit. We don't really know what he's doing, and we don't really know what you can do, but maybe something will happen. I was like, okay. So every day after school, I would hang out with this dude for a couple hours, and he taught me how to use graphic programs like Photoshop and stuff like that.
Uh-oh.
I got to know a few other people that were adults that worked at a graphic software company.
Okay.
And they gave me an internship, and so they just started teaching me on the job, So I'd go there every day after school, and then I'm pretty sure I parlayed that into some sort of course credit too. So I still barely graduated high school, but by the time I did graduate, they hired me full-time as a designer,
Nice.
So
Oh my goodness.
I have kind of a non-traditional upbringing in that sense.
That's kind of cool. It's almost did you feel like you just weren't interested in the other topics and this is more interesting to you, so that's why you gravitated towards it? Or is it just that it was just there?
A little bit of both. I mean, I honestly didn't flourish in a traditional classroom setting. And they sort of like when they introduced me to all this other stuff, it sort of like weaponized me and like put me in that direction, you know?
Yeah.
And that was like the stuff, because, you know, like I really liked screwing around in Photoshop and Illustrator and stuff like that. And so that's, you know, that's where the seeds were planted pretty much.
Nice. Yeah, and that's the thing is, I feel like traditional high schools and traditional schools like math and history and stuff like that, yeah, I think it's important to an extent, but I mean, for a lot of creatives, that type of stuff can only go so far. Like myself,
Sure.
I was also in ESL classes, and someone handed me a video camera, and I pretty much took off from there. But like, I couldn't concentrate at all when it came down to this math and science, or not so much science. I loved science, but everything else was like, this is a waste of time for me. I'm not learning anything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I totally understand where you're coming from with that point. But with all of that, when did you feel like that you could capitalize on kind of your art and whatnot and really kind of make a living off of art?
Not for a very long time, because when I was a kid, I wanted to be a comic book artist, and
Of course.
I like devoured comic books every
all?
day.
Yeah.
And I would draw my own comics, and
Been there. Yeah.
I was really like, oh, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna like be a comic book artist. And I would like write letters to Marvel and be like, here's my stuff and whatever. And then like when I was in junior high or maybe early high school, and I was hanging out around the comic book store where I grew up, I started seeing some of the other kids who are my age and the type of work that they could do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm not going to be a comic book artist. Like, that's not going to happen. I'm like, I'm not untalented.
Right. It's a different kind of talent.
But it takes a certain talent to really flourish in that career.
Yeah.
And I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. And so I would make like cartoons or like comics for like my friends and stuff.
Oh, fun.
And I would do a lot of doodles, and I just had like reams and reams of sketchbooks and stuff. But honestly, once I started getting immersed in the world of just like graphic design and stuff like that, I just stopped really doing it. And I would utilize those skills I had when like as needed for projects or whatever. But really, like, I just like didn't do a lot of it. And I would still doodle, but I really kind of defeated myself and was just like, well, this isn't like, there's no future for you here, so don't like put any energy into it, you know? And but you know, I worked as a graphic designer for a very long time, and I started feeling pretty unfulfilled by it. And something that was sort of happening as I was experiencing that unfulfillment was there's kind of a big boom in designer art toys, like Kid Robot and stuff like that. Right. And you know, Frank Kozik and stuff like that. And then like the pop culture art scene. So both of these things like started kind of coming up at the same time in the mid 2000s. And man, I like looked at that stuff and I was like, oh God, it's like, that's like so cool. And a lot of it, I'd look at some of the doodles that I was doing and I'd be like, you know, like there isn't stuff that I don't take seriously could like live here, you know?
Right.
Right on.
And so as I kept working as a graphic designer, I then was like, okay, and I was getting old. I was like older too. Like I was 10 years older. And I was like, you know, like maybe I should like start doing some of this with a little bit more of the seriousness to it, because like I would look at who was in some of these art shows, or I'd look at some of the toys that were being made or whatever. And it's not that they were bad, and it's not that they were like It's not that I didn't like them or whatever, but I was definitely like, oh dude, like why can't I do this? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's not like it's unattainably good. You know what I mean? It's not like when I looked at the comic book stuff when I was a kid.
Exactly.
And I was like, oh no way. Like I looked at this stuff and I was like, maybe I could fit in here. And so I just started training, you know? It was like I had a fucking training montage of like every day. I was like, you know, like I need to like really beef up my skills if I'm going to start doing this stuff. So I started drawing every day again. And I hadn't drawn every day for like 10 years.
Dang.
So I was like drawing every day, drawing every day, drawing every day. And then I made a list of all the things I wanted to do. I was like, oh, I want to do like an art toy. And I was like, oh, and I want to do an art show. And I want to be in group shows. And I want to do this. And I want to do that, blah, blah, blah. And then I kind of broke down each of those things, trying to figure out like how to do any of that because I didn't know.
Right.
And then I kind of like figured out how to do it, you know? So I put together a portfolio of art that I had made just in my downtime when I wasn't working. And then I sent that thing off to like all the galleries that I wanted to work with. And like most of them emailed me back, which is like pretty crazy,
rad.
you know? And that's not like, I mean, that like, I don't want to say it like never happens, but it's like a lot of it had to do with like right time, right place, right style, and right kind of attitude, you know what I mean? Because if you looked at some of the shows that I was in at the time, there's a huge, broad spectrum of work, but there wasn't really what I was doing. So I felt like I could fit in a little bit. And so that's kind of how I got into it.
It almost seems like the unconventional nature of your schooling kind of helped you with that aspect. You know, it wasn't like you kind of knew what was going on. You were kind of just trying to figure it out on your own.
Sure.
That's kind of neat how that came about. Now, I know for a lot of artists that do, you know, draw a lot, they're struggling to find like their look and their feel. Like, did you ever have that moment where you kind of went, aha, that's my look, that's my style? Because you're pretty iconic. I mean, people see your work and they know it's yours. You know, that's hard to come by.
Sure. So, I'm not, of like my lack of that thing that would make those comic book artists or like fine artists like good.
Right.
Like I just don't have, like I have it sort of, but like I don't have it in the way that I thought they did. And so I draw really, really simple stuff because I was like, if it's simple enough, you can't really like you can't give me shit about it.
Yeah, you can't
like,
critique it, right?
Yeah. And so I would draw like these really simple things, not really out of like insecurity, but because it's what I felt comfortable doing. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But also I have this history of design and I've worked as a designer for years and years and years. And I've been training as a designer for years and years and years. And so like one thing that sort of helped me when I was crafting my style is that like there's like symmetry and design mechanics that are involved in a lot of the work I do. And so it's not like, I don't want to say it's not loose because it can be, but like I approached my art as sort of like a design problem. And I tried to like solve the problem. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
So, I used to kind of beat myself up a little bit and be like, oh, fuck. Like, I wish I had been able to do this like 5 or 10 years earlier than I had gotten started. But honestly, I don't think I would have been able to because I just didn't have the skill set and I didn't have the tools that like allowed me to sort of naturally and organically develop as an artist, you know?
Right.
Gotcha. Wow. So, and with your stuff, is there anybody that's really kind of inspired you to, I mean, for what you're doing? Is there any like inspiration that you get from another artist?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I have a ton of artists that inspire me. A big one is my friend, Chris Lee. He does art under the name, The Beast is Back.
Nice.
And he also, you know, like we have a sort of similar upbringing in the sense that he worked as a designer for a long time and an art director. And so he approaches things from like a problem solving aspect. And he's also way more, he has a strictness to his work that I'm strict too, but like I play it a little more fast and loose than he would.
Yeah.
And so like he's someone, you know, I'll always look at his art and be blown away, you know. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, like I follow a ton of artists. I always like I don't ever feel like there's kind of a finish line with growing as an artist, so I'm always just kind of keeping my eyes out for cool stuff, you know.
Well, and that kind of leads into the next question of, you know, what made you decide to really branch out into the world of, you know, vinyl collectibles?
Well, I'd always wanted to, but it's extremely difficult to break into independently.
Yeah.
I actually, because the thing that really got me jazzed was when I was starting out was seeing all those vinyl toys and seeing the like Dunnies and shit like that. I saw that stuff and I was like, oh my God, this is like so cool. And one of the first big fortune I had was when I was starting out. I was able to intern with a vinyl toy artist named Amanda Vizel, and she did a lot of work with Kid Robot. And she does like a lot of vinyl toys and a lot of resin toys. And she was the person, her and her partner Michelle, they helped, they mentored me, and they let me basically intern with them for a year or two, and they really broke down how something like that is manufactured and how to make something like that and what you would need to do and the kind of resources you need to have. And that was a long time ago. That was 10 years ago. And it should be fairly telling that it's taken me 10 years to make a vinyl toy. And that's not because I haven't had the good idea. That's not because I haven't had the money. That's not because, you know, like it's all that stuff. And it's like, and this is just my story. Other people might have different experiences, and certainly do probably. But like for me, like I had to be really tactical about how I decided to do a toy, because it is expensive. It is difficult to manufacture. There's a lot of logistics. There's a lot of stuff that I had no idea about. And I'm a one-man shop, and I have to figure out how to do all this stuff myself. Right. And so my first, you know, I had done resin toys before, and I had done like wood toys before, and that's all been over the past like 10 years. But like, but you know, it like, I've always been searching for that idea that would lend itself to a fucking killer vinyl toy, dude. And it just took this long. And so when I decided to turn the dumpster fire into a vinyl toy, that was after like years of being like, this one isn't right. Like that's not right either. You know what I mean? Because I could spend the money and just do something that I think I would like and that some people might buy or whatever. But like,
well, let's sell, right?
Yeah, and honestly, like it doesn't always matter if it sells. You know, like that shouldn't be the make or break point. But like, you know, I just had a lot of factors to consider in doing that kind of endeavor. You know, so even though this like took a while, like it's like it kind of been in the fire for a long time. You know what I mean?
No pun intended. Nice.
The dumpster fire.
Sure. Indeed. Yes.
Sure. Indeed. Well, very nice. Well, I definitely like what you brought up about your design work. I'm looking at the image I have behind me. All your poster work, you can tell that it was meticulously designed. Just the way that, you know, everyone's kind of put together in different scenes on all your posters. But the one thing that's really nice about your artwork is that all of your characters have the same dimensions. You know, so it's easy to put them into different spaces. You know, it's not like you're someone who has different sized characters all the time, unless a character is warranted, right? Like a Hagrid or a Chewbacca.
Sure.
What made you just decide that? Because it seemed like you decided that pretty early on in your process.
Yeah, I mean, I really wanted to have like a set of rules I stuck to. You know what I mean? Like everything should sort of have have uniformity to it. And that was a really good way to develop a style. I was like, okay, like this is what I'm going to do. If this is the type of work that I do, what can't I do? You know what I mean? Like what if I did this, does it not make it what I want it to be? You know what I mean? So
Right.
if I break certain rules, is it not going to be my style? You know?
Right.
And so I had this like pretty strict rule book that I played by, and I worked by those rules for a long time, and that meant like all the characters must look like this, all the characters' eyes must look like this, all the limbs must look like this, and that's how I operated for a while. But you know, like the kind of beautiful thing about making rules is that you get to break them sometimes because you're the one fucking making them.
Yeah,
so
sure rules. Huh.
Exactly. So what I would find is that, you know, again, I'm a traditional designer. So what I would find is that the more work I was doing, sometimes what I was working on didn't, like, the rules like didn't work. You know what I mean? And so like, you know, if I was drawing the Hulk and I drew him at the same scale and size as Captain America, it, you know, it's going to look like the Hulk, but it's not really going to look like the Hulk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so then it's like, then I got to break a couple rules. You know what I mean? I got to make those arms bigger. Maybe I'm going to add a little bit of definition to it, you know? And so, you know, so that's basically, that's what I've had to do. It's just like, make new rules, break them and make new rules, you know?
Nice.
And after a while, then it's like that style guide starts just expanding more and more and more. Now there's still like some foundational aspects to those rules that usually stay in place. But, you know, I've also understood that like, you know, like I can't let those rules kind of be a hindrance to a piece of work that I'm proud of. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and I'm really glad that you brought up the Hulk, because we were actually pretty curious, like who approached who for the Disney Marvel type of license? Did you seek them out and say, hey, I want to do more Marvel stuff. I want to do Captain America and Hulk and such.
So they reached out to me, and
Nice.
they reached out to me because of the work I'd done with, well, actually, I mean, like they had been familiar with my work for a while. They had seen, so like one kind of cool thing that was happening is that as I was coming up in the kind of pop culture art scene, is that, you know, a lot of these people that work for movie studios are like big fans of movies, big fans of comics, big fans of TV shows. And I would see some of these people at the art shows I was in or that I would go to. And then I started getting like some meetings with them, and then I'd go into their office and they'd have like a poster of mine like in their office, you know what I mean?
Wild.
Which was like cool, you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's cool, man. It's like there's other people my age and, you know, just as nerdy as I am that like, you know, love love that kind of work. And it's like they want to hire you to do stuff for them, you know?
Right,
So,
sure.
but I mean, that relationship kind of started just because like I had my first solo art show at Gallery 1988, and a few people from Lucasfilm saw the work there, and they were trying to prep. This is about a year before The Force Awakens came out, maybe, and they were prepping to do like marketing stuff for that, and so they thought I would be a good fit for some of that stuff. So they hired me to do that, and then, you know, that kind of got a lot of eyes on me. And then obviously Lucasfilm is owned by Disney, and Disney owns Marvel, and blah blah. So, you know, it's like it started like, yeah, I started circulating in the guts of Disney like pretty quick. You know what I mean?
Wow, that's pretty cool, man.
Mm-hmm.
Devastating. I like that. So what's it like designing emojis for Twitter? Is that something you get to like work within the parameters of what Twitter has? Or do you just kind of like, here's my art and you're going to make it an emoji?
Yeah, I just give them the art, and but it's cool. I mean, it's another design problem because something that looks good at 5 inches isn't really going to look good at 72 pixels.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
And so there's a lot of trial and error there. But again, it's like I like solving those kind of problems, and it's a lot of fun. It's really cool.
It must be crazy to see, your work on all these famous people's Twitter handles and seeing the cast and crew of Guardians of the Galaxy with your artwork.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff must be a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a little eye popping sometimes. It's because it's like I kind of work in a vacuum. You know what I mean? And then like there's deadlines, there's bills to pay, there's a zillion other things kind of going on. Right. And I'm really grateful and stoked for a lot of the work that I get to do. And it's especially fun that I get to work on things that I loved as a kid, like all this comic book stuff. And I didn't think I was going to ever be a comic book artist, and I'm not, but like, I'm certainly
close.
Like, yeah, like it's I'm essentially getting the best of both worlds, Yeah. And so every once in a while when I'm able to kind of step outside of myself and look at that for what it is, it's really awesome. It's kind of unbelievable.
Yeah. Now, out of all of these cons and stuff, I know that we keep talking about the artists, cons and everything like that. What is there one that you're gonna miss this year that you look forward to every time you go?
Yeah, I mean, like I'm gonna miss Comic-Con. And I say that like, Comic-Con is a lot of work if you're a vendor, and it's a lot of money, and it's a lot of time, and it's a lot of energy, and it's just a lot. But I've never had like I've never not had a memorable experience there as a vendor. And it's like dude, it almost feels like getting ready to go to war or something, in the months leading up to it. Right. Because me and all my artist buddies, we're all just kind of commiserating about all the prep work we're doing and stuff, and then the thing hits, and I don't know what an attendee does, but for me, I get there on Tuesday and I leave on Monday, so it's like I'm there for almost a full week.
Yeah.
And it goes by like really slowly, but also like really quickly too. And so it's like I'm not gonna miss like that aspect of it, but I am gonna miss the fact that like every year I'm like, oh man, like what's gonna happen this year? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what's gonna happen this year? So I'll miss that.
Yeah, that's for sure. Unfortunately, was there any plans that you had before it got canceled to do anything, like any other Mando posters or any collectibles or any exclusives? Have you been approached by anybody? Okay, so is that scrapped, or is there still plans to actually put that out there now that it is not happening?
We're all trying to figure that out.
Okay.
Right on.
Yeah, that's it.
Tough. Because it's like, even though this stuff is getting canceled, rightfully so, like there's still people, there's still like consumers, you know what I mean? Right. There's still people that like want to like have the experience somehow. So I think a lot of us are trying to figure out some ways to cater to that,
Sure. Right on. I think that's a struggle for a lot of people, for a lot of these conventions, a lot of these vendors that are like have produced goods that now they have to figure out how to sell them to people at home.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Like you don't have booths to walk by and be like, hey, buy this.
Definitely.
I'm sure that's definitely a struggle, unfortunately. Now, is what you're doing now, is that like, you consider that your day job? Is that what you do full time now? Or are you doing other stuff design work wise?
No, I mean, like I'm a full-time artist.
Nice. That must be
fantastic.
That's living the dream. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty great. It's pretty great. I will never forget the day I quit my day job. I will never forget the last day I worked at my day job. I will never forget the first day I woke up and not having to go to a day job, you know?
Right.
So it's pretty awesome.
Well,
Nice.
and with all these cancellations of cons and stuff, and everybody's locked down, everybody's locked in their house, how are you doing during this lockdown? Is there anything coming in the pipeline that you're working on now that you're excited about?
Yeah, so my day-to-day life hasn't changed that much because I work from home and, you know, but it's weird. It feels like sci-fi, you know?
Right.
Like
Right.
I walk outside and it feels like fucking sci-fi.
Right. Where is
Like, that's
everybody,
how it
right?
feels.
Yeah.
It's like I'm a big fan of like I'm a big fan of 80s, like 70s and 80s, like post-apocalyptic movies. Like there's a movie called Night of the Comet, which
Okay.
is it came out in like 1984, I think, and that's about like post-apocalyptic Los Angeles. And then there's, of course, in the 70s, there's Omega Man,
Oh yes.
and then a few others where it's like you see kind of the, you know, LA, which is typically this big bustling city, and you know, it's like there's always people on the streets and there's always cars on, you know, deadlock traffic, and you know, it's like you go outside now and it's not really like that. It feels like a post-apocalyptic sort of like, you know, experience, you know. It's very strange. So that's weird. The stuff that I'm working on, I mean, luckily I have a lot of work to do, and so I've been keeping busy. So yeah.
Oh,
That's good.
fantastic.
Yeah, it's funny. When you mentioned that, for some reason, the movie The Langoliers, that awful movie, came to my mind.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Mostly because of the
With
empty airport.
with Bronson Pinchot.
Yes, of course, Belky. I love it.
Mhm.
It's the bad guy. That was such a weird movie. I mean, I loved it when I was younger, but it's pretty awful. But yeah, it's that same feeling, like they're stuck in this airport and there's like no one there. And I always thought that was so, like, that really kind of was interesting to me. And that's kind of how it feels now when I look at places like that, where you expect a lot of people and it's not anymore. Not that things are run down. It's not like The Walking Dead out there. It's more like,
for sure.
like what you're saying. It's just things are empty. It's
Well,
bizarre.
there's just a feeling in the air, you know.
That's a vibe in the
Yeah,
air.
the air is cleaner.
Yeah.
But it is
Definitely.
nice being able to get from A to B pretty quickly out here in California.
Yeah,
no,
for sure.
no 5 p.m. traffic. It's fantastic.
It is. So I do notice that, according to your Twitter, that the way you're passing time right now is Animal Crossing, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
That's pretty fun. I know that Trevor plays it a lot. I don't have a Switch, so I don't play it, but I do watch other people play.
Frog, it seems we're the only two that are not playing this game.
Well, there's no
Yeah.
Switches. I can't buy one, so I'm not going to
Mhm.
spend $700 to buy a Switch. Just for
Right.
the game. But the interesting thing about that game that I actually do kind of like is that you get to create your own kind of world. Do you find that fun, or do you find it like too restrictive? Like you wish you can have your own rules now that you've set your own rules?
No, I mean it's fun. Like it's
Okay.
it's just kind of a nice little playground, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, like I think everybody right now is just kind of searching for some sort of community, and anything that you can tap that will sort of like, you know, open the spigot for some of that is like that. I mean, it's why I think it's speaking to a lot of people right now. I like those kind of games. I like those kind of games where it's like you're just sort of in a false reality for, you know, 20 minutes or however long you want to play, you know.
Right.
And I also just like cute shit, and that's like a very cute game, you know.
It is. But it's very modular. I mean, it kind of reminds me of your work, how you can kind of fit your style in any kind of scenario, which is kind of fun. So people can, still create their own environment, but in this, structured world. There's rules in this world.
Yeah.
for
Well,
people.
also it's like I play a lot of video games, and there's not a lot of video games that I can apply my artwork to. And
Right.
so the fact that like in like I can't put my apparel on Overwatch, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like in Animal Crossing it's fun because like I have a zillion friends that are playing it, and a lot of my followers and fans play it too. So it's really fun to be able to engage with them in just a different way and be like, here's a dumpster fire shirt in
Right.
Animal Crossing if you want to wear it. You know what I mean?
If you want to, yeah.
It's so strange. It's like I never really would have anticipated that, but that's that's just how it goes.
No, I'm kind of glad that they have that for that game, because then it does lend that, and you can be creative.
Yeah,
and plus,
it's super fun.
it's kind of nice too that people get to come to your island. It's a way for them to like come to your house without coming to your house. Like, hey, come on over, enjoy my TV.
Do you have an island code if people wanted to come visit your? I don't know how this works since I don't know.
Bro, you got to open the gates, Wolfgang. Like you got to open the gates. I stream. I'll live stream because you can draw in the app, and so I'll live stream when I draw in the app, and sometimes I'll open the gates then. So if you follow me on Twitch, I'm usually doing that.
You want to throw your Twitch out there for people to?
It's just twitch.tv/100soft.
Perfect. Nice. Now, how did you come up with the name 100soft? Where'd that come from?
Well, it's actually 100% soft, and that's just it's how I would describe my art to people, because they'd be like, well, what kind of art is it? And I'd be like, it's like cute stuff. And they'd be like, well, what does that mean? I'm like, I don't know. It's like fucking Sanrio or whatever. And they'd be like, well, what does that mean? I'm like, dude, it's like, it's like everything's like squeezable and soft, and it's like everything's like 100% soft. You want to like squeeze it all,
That's an awesome description.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. Like a plushie. It's 100% soft.
Indeed.
All right. I like that. Yeah, I'd wondered about that. It's kind of unique, and that makes sense once you say it like that. Anyways. So one question I had for you, and it's a question I asked a lot of people in my old job, because I used to work in a pet store, and now I work for that company in the corporate offices. I don't really get to see pets anymore, which is one of my favorite parts of my job. Do you own any pets?
I do, yeah.
Nice. What do you own?
I own a cat.
Okay.
His name is Admiral Whiskers.
Nice.
Oh, what a name. Yes.
That's right.
Admiral Whiskers. Is Admiral Whiskers, what kind of cat is Admiral Whiskers?
He's a Siamese mixed snowshoe.
Oh, nice. I had a Siamese a few years ago. It was a great cat. It was a cat we kept indoor, outdoor, so it was always in the neighborhood picking on fights and keeping us safe. So I liked my cats.
Well, cool. So if people wanted to follow you and check you out over on Twitter, and obviously you already gave out your Twitch, how can people get a hold of you if they wanted to see more?
100soft everywhere.
That's easy.
Nice. Perfect.
Very nice.
For sure.
And so you were talking about like you were a graphic designer. Do you exclusively work digitally, or do you ever do any pen and paper type stuff?
Only for sketching and kind of like brainstorming, really.
Okay.
I have carpal tunnel really bad. So it's hard for me to actually draw like physically, a lot. But like I did a screen print series last year where like I was hand drawing on each one of the screen prints, and I wanted to fucking kill myself afterwards. It's like I'd never like physically drawn that much in like however many years. But yeah, like I would say 95% of the stuff I do is digital.
Now, do you use I know a lot of artists use like Procreate. Do you use that program at all, or do you use something else?
I use it for sketching, and that's it.
Okay. What do you use for you? Do you use Photoshop then, or Illustrator? Or what
no, I use mainly Illustrator and After Effects.
Okay. Yeah, I'd always wondered about that. And you work on then an iPad? Do you work on a computer? Do you work on?
I work on a Mac.
Okay. Very nice.
And now to kind of circle back to the beginning conversation of that teacher that you had to hang out with in high school, do you still keep in contact with him at all?
No, I mean, it was a long ass time ago.
Yeah.
I lost touch with him, but if I ever saw him, it'd be great. Like he's also, I don't even know how old he is now.
Right on.
But yeah, he would always eat anchovy pizza. He'd be like, "You guys want pizza?" And we'd be like, "Yeah!" And he'd be like, "Great!" And then he'd bring up the anchovy pizza. We'd be like, "No,
what the heck?"
Yeah, so bad.
I kind of feel like a lot of us have that guy in our life too.
Yeah, and like I said, he chain smoked too. So he would have this like anchovy chain smoker breath. That was just so fucking brutal, dude.
Oh,
Good guy,
buddy.
Good guy. Love
Yeah.
you, miss you.
Guy, Mr. Corduroy. That's what I'm gonna call him from now on, Mr. Corduroy. Nice. Oh, cool.
And so just to wrap up on kind of one positive note, is there like a favorite project you've worked on, whether it's a poster, an emoji, a vinyl toy?
I mean, I'm really lucky, dude. Like most of the stuff I work on, I really, really love, you know? Like I'm kind of like I've been in a space now where it's like the last thing I've worked on is my favorite thing, you know, which is pretty cool.
Well, let's say this. What if you had the chance to actually work on a comic book? What comic book would you have wanted to work on?
Oh, I would have worked on, like, my dream would have been to like work on a Chris Claremont X-Men run or something.
Oh, yes, great choice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day with like Jim Lee and
Prior to that, I like Jim Lee, of course, but like I was more of a Mark Silvestri, John Byrne guy.
Very cool.
Right.
Well, cool. Well, we'll wrap it up. Hey, if you like what you're listening to right now, check us out over on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube at Secondary Heroes for fun pop culture news, episode drops, secondary interactions with you, our fans. And if you haven't already, please rate and review our podcast over on iTunes. And hey, if you have questions, feel free to ask. We would love to, incorporate those into the show. Thank you so much for being on the show tonight.
For sure.
This is really cool, and it was very informative.
Great. I aim to please.
Please
and inform.
Actually, before we head, I did have one question. Is Truck your given name?
No, my real name's Evan.
Evan. Okay. I thought that was pretty cool. If someone actually named their kid Truck.
No, some punk rockers give it to me in high school.
Awesome.
And it stuck.
That's great. Truck Torrence says it's great. It's a great name. All right. Well, thank you, sir.
Yeah, for sure.
To everyone listening, we hope you enjoyed, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right, prog out.
The best animated movies on Netflix you should watch while you can. That is your clickbait of the week.